know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
What am I going to say? That my team two times me? Then they're going to say, shut up, you're always talking? I don't know what to say about this game. Rutgers goes down 35-32 to the UCLA Bruins at home in Piscataway. UCLA 2-5 on the season with the win against Rutgers. Rutgers 4-3 on the season. And my, how the Scarlet Knights have fallen from that pinnacle of a high against the Washington Huskies at home on a Friday night down to a Saturday noon drubbing against UCLA. The stats kind of look interesting. 478 to 422 total yards in favor of UCLA. 383 passing yards for Garbers and the UCLA Bruins. 287 for Rutgers. Rushing yards, 135 for Rutgers. 95 for UCLA. Yards per play, 6.9 for the Bruins, 7.2 for Rutgers. It looks on paper like the game was pretty close. The score makes it pretty close, and actually it was kind of pretty close. The Rutgers offense today looked like it had a pulse for the first time in several weeks, which really is a shame since the defense really had no pulse this game at all. You know, you go to with the Nebraska game, you lose 14-7 because the defense holds Nebraska to a very low total, holds a talented quarterback in check, and the offense is absolutely inept. Can't even get the ball in from the 2-yard line, even though that's debatable with the call. Then the next week, the defense comes up with 2 turnovers in the first half, goes into the first half 14-0, but the offense couldn't do a darn thing. Now today, the offense all of a sudden opens up the playbook a little bit, looks pretty competent, scores some points, gets some things going, gets some drives going, and the defense couldn't stop anything. So we have a real problem playing complementary football, it seems, and today was yet another example. We've lost 3 straight games, and in each game, I think there's something different that has affected us. But either way you slice it, the fact is we are not a well-coached team right now. We are not playing complementary football right now. It does not seem like the staff is on the same page in terms of having a cohesive game plan or making cohesive in-game adjustments to come away with victories. And the team looks completely disheveled. It looks lost. And I hate to say this. I don't know this for a fact because I'm not in the locker room, but the team looks like it's playing uninspired, lacking an edge severely, which is uncharacteristic of a Coach Schiano team. We'll talk about that. By the way, we lose to Nebraska 14-7, but Indiana, the Hoosiers, ranked 16 in the country, just beat the brakes off Nebraska 56-7 today. So Indiana hung 56 points on Nebraska, and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights could only muster a touchdown. There's problems in Piscataway. And I think it's really one of the most disappointing things about the year. And look, admittedly, I predicted 9 wins on the year because of the returning seniors, because of the way the schedule shook out. And it wasn't just because we didn't have the Penn States, Ohio States, and Michigans of the world on the schedule. It was also because these games, yes, some of the teams looked vulnerable. I mean, UCLA had 1 win before they came in on the road and had to kick off 9 a.m. their body time coming from the West Coast. I'm sorry if you expect a win there. Maybe I'm nuts. But even, aside from that, when I was on, I forget if it was JR's show or Eric's show, one of the Ohio shows, I said that the range for this team was anywhere from 10 wins to 5 wins. And he kind of made a face like, oh, I think it was Eric Boggs. He kind of made a face like, oh, that would be really bad. That would not be good. And I said, though, but there is so much variability in this schedule because of the fact that, there's so many toss-up games. So many toss-up games that it's feasible that Rutgers could pull every single one of them out and have a great win total, or pull absolutely none of them out and have a really subpar win total. And at this point in the year, you're 4-3. You have suffered tremendous amount of injuries. I'll tell you, when you get the injury report today and it says Aaron Lewis and Wesley Bailey are both out, it didn't look good right from the start, because we've already had a lot of trouble getting pressure on the quarterback. We've already had a lot of trouble getting anything going as far as defensive, pass rush. And now your two best pass rushers and edge defenders are out for the game. So I already didn't think it was going to bode well. But what we saw, especially from the secondary and especially missing tackles, Igbinosun with the just whiff on Barber's run, it was just indicative of how this defense has really looked all year. Just can't tackle, can't take the right angles. And it goes beyond just, okay, we've got backup linebackers. Okay, we've got backup players in there. All right, but this is a starter. This is somebody you expect things from, and he's whiffing on a quarterback making a move on him. A quarterback who's been prone to mistakes, who hasn't been great this year, to say the least. And he's running 35, 40 yards to the house on you because you're whiffing on a tackle. Yeah, it's unfathomable. The offense gets going. You have, Ian Strong out there doing what he does. You had Chris Long making a catch in traffic, taking a hit. You had Kyle Monungai rushing for 3 touchdowns. Just playing really, really well. Absorbing an injury at the end of the first half, coming back out and running like a man on a mission. There is so much to say good about this young man, running 106 yards on 19 carries. It's a shame that some of these seniors came back to this team to try to have a memorable season and really put the exclamation point on their tenure at Rutgers and put the exclamation point on their tenure under Coach Schiano in one of his building, classes or groups of guys. And this is what they really have to show for it. Ethan Kaliakmanis passing 287 yards, 18 for 30. So he finally gets over 50%. 1 interception, no touchdowns. Did have a rushing touchdown. Like I said, Monungai had 3 rushing touchdowns. We spread the ball around. I thought that on offense, despite losing Kenny Fletcher for the season, made great use of Dremel, of all the guys. Dymere Miller, gets a lot of looks. He deserves them. 5 catches, 70 yards. He can get open. And UCLA secondary, we said coming into the game, was the weak spot of the defense. Rutgers and the offensive game plan was smart to take advantage of UCLA's weakness and attack the secondary in the passing game. I thought we did a good job of that. Running the ball, I was actually really impressed with how Monungai was able to gain some traction between the tackles when that was supposed to be more the strength of UCLA's team. They stuffed us on some runs, but Kyle was able to still make something out of nothing and sometimes just churn his legs. Sometimes there were some decent gaps in there that he exploited, and I was happy to see that. But the defense just missed tackle after missed tackle. Guys running wide open. The completely incompetent pass rush, which, again, we have injuries, but enough with the injuries. And I was sitting there early in the game, and I thought to myself, and I said out loud to some people, I said, you might as well blitz a lot more because you're not covering anybody in the secondary anyway. Guys are running free anyway. So if you let them sit back there and pick you apart, it's not like you're preventing anything by having an extra defender back, playing defense. You might as well run one almost every play to at least try to put pressure on them. And when we started to gain some momentum at the beginning of the second half, that's exactly what we did. We fly in there and we knock them down for once, get a sack, and we get the ball back. But I think the coaching, from Virginia Tech on, we've seen some legitimately questionable coaching from the Rutgers staff. Virginia Tech went from a game that we should have dominated and walked away with a relatively comfortable victory, if you look at the first half, to a game that was an absolute nail-biter, and I truly thought, but for a great, play by Ian Strong and Athan to land the ball properly, we lose. Or at least wind up in overtime. And in this game, you have a 4th and 2 in UCLA territory where we've been moving the ball pretty well, where Kyle Monangai has shown that he can grab 2 yards even up the middle, the way the game had gone. And you see that our defense is simply not stopping anything. And at that point, I'd say you'd want to maximize possessions and maximize a drive that seemed to be going pretty decently, as opposed to giving the ball back to UCLA after we had finally stopped them and enable them to march down the field for a touchdown. Now, I understand you'd rather pin them deep, and I understand that in most games, in many games, and Schiano called the punt a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was the right call, instead of going for it. And I thought, actually, he's gone for it a little too much this year in some spots where he should have kicked field goals. We'll get to that in a second as far as taking points. But in this particular game, I don't care what the analytics say. He seems to be relying a lot on analytics. Maybe I'm the one who's the amateur because I am an amateur. What do I know? But from where I'm standing, there are some gut instinct, feel of the game calls that anybody who's played Pop Warner, watched enough games from the stands, or watched enough games on the TV, or coached or played, kind of knows. And in that part of the game, I didn't think that the 30 yards you would net by punting the ball as opposed to just going for it were really worth it. And I say that because UCLA was moving the ball in chunks, passing the ball so easily that even if you pin them at the 20 or the 10, it's not like they're going to have a hard time getting back to the 45 or 48 or whatever yard line they were on. So is there much of a difference between giving UCLA the ball close to midfield or giving them the ball, at the 20 or 10 yard line, given the way that they were moving the ball? Versus, is there a big difference between giving them the ball back without anything to show for it and putting your defense back on the field, who struggled mightily, versus keeping the drive alive and maybe getting points yourself, keeping your defense off the field? I just think the risk reward there seemed kind of obvious to me, and I didn't think it was the right call to punt it there. I thought before the half, Rutgers, you drive, you kick a field goal. It's a long field goal, and I thought the one bright spot I thought of the coaching today was that they kicked field goals at the right times and let Jay Patel get in his groove a little bit more, and he shows you what he can do if you utilize him properly. I thought that was a revelation. But they kicked the field goal before the half. It's a closer game. And then we are getting a little too greedy. We haven't played good defense. So we stop them on first down, and we immediately use a timeout. They have 3 timeouts, so I understand it doesn't matter that much, but why give them a freebie? Why stop the clock for them? It was this hubris that we're going to stop you and put you in a 3 and out so that we can score again. It's like, be happy with the field goal. They have dominated you up and down the field on offense. Why are you giving them a breath and taking a timeout to allow more time for them? Of course, they go down and they score, and it's a much different game than it should have been going into half. Now, we come out in the third quarter, and I thought that the momentum there was really on our side for a little bit. Kyle Monangai comes back in, probably playing injured. Based on what Greg said in the postgame, he said that kid's tough, and he's not going to tell us what he's going through, but what he's going through is serious. So he had some kind of significant injury, and he's playing anyway. And we score. And I said to several people, I even texted a buddy of mine in capital letters with exclamation points and question marks. I said, why? Why did we not just kick the extra point? In the post game, Schiano's saying, it's math. He'll tell us. If we want to see it, he'll show us the analytics. Well, to me, it's math too. And the math is that if you had kicked 2 extra points instead of going for the points, then that last touchdown you get could have been the difference, could have tied the game. So, you just and that's what I think anyway. I mean, math is not my strong suit, But why are you not taking the points early in the game? There are too many different variable scenarios, way too many scenarios at that point. That you don't know how the game's going to play out. You don't know who's going to score what and when. It's way too early in the game to assume that your next move is to stop UCLA and then drive down to tie the game with a field goal. Nor should you even be thinking about tying the game that early in the third quarter when you had all the momentum. You could pass them in the score. You don't know what's going to happen. Take the points. And if we had taken the points on those 2 touchdowns, then you set yourself up after Keontae Hamilton makes an epic, amazing play. And I mean, I was going to leave. I stayed in the stadium up near the walking area and watched the Bruins miss a field goal. Watched Ian Strong, Ethan Kaliakmanis with a beautiful pass down the sideline. And watched us with a real chance to have a miraculous game at the end there. And the main thing that stole our chance to have that opportunity was going for 2 twice too early in the game. Now, maybe the second time wasn't too early at that point because you already missed the first one. And at that point, it was too late to correct the mistake. But if you had kicked 1-2, it wouldn't even be a question the second time because the first point would be there, so you'd know the math. Now you just kick it and you set yourself up to be down by 8 and tie the game. And the whole game is different at that point. And the momentum and everything is different when we come up with the turnover. But we robbed ourselves of a chance to do that by not taking the points much earlier. The punt, these have been things that seem to have plagued this team this year. And as we sit at 4-3 and we're going on the road to play USC, now and Schiano said, call your shot, cast your ballot, kind of challenging people. I will tell you, I have no idea what the future holds. I don't know if they're going to turn this thing around. I don't know if some miracle happens in LA next Friday. I don't know for sure. I hope Rutgers completely turns it around and wins every game they have from now to the end of the season. But the way it looks is that Rutgers is in deep trouble this year. That a season that could have been a real pinnacle of part of the build, a real stepping stone, a real accomplishment, a real step forward, is now looking like a complete lost cause in a lot of ways. This team is going to struggle to get back to a bowl game because odds are looking slim you can pull off a victory at USC next week. And assuming a loss there, you're 4-4 and you've got 4 games left and they're all a toss-up. But really the only game I think you should win, and that's debatable, is maybe Maryland. But Maryland has had your number for the past several years under Schiano. And even though they don't have the quarterback anymore, they still have weapons on the perimeter, and our defense has looked absolutely terrible. So trusting us to beat Maryland is a stretch. The other teams are toss-up games that I don't know that I take Rutgers. I don't think I take them against Minnesota. I don't take them against Illinois. I don't know about Michigan State, but you have to go 2-2 in that final stretch just to make a bowl game. Can you do it? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. Is it totally out of the realm of possibility? No. You have a bye week to get yourself straight. Very possible. 6-6. Now it's looking like the pinnacle of success from where we're sitting. But early in the season, before the season started, that would have looked like a huge disappointment. And it is a huge disappointment. 5-7 is a failure. A failure. Now, do injuries count for something? The answer is yes. Injuries count for something. You're not just losing good players. You're losing captains. You're losing emotional leaders. That's difficult. Losing Mo Toure before the season really seems like it took a keystone, a cornerstone, a linchpin out of that defense. Took the air out of their sails. And you could tell when Schiano was talking about his season-ending injury preseason that it was a significant problem. And then you lose other guys. Powell's in and out. Longer Beam's in and out. Today you don't have Bailey. You don't have Lewis. And what are you supposed to do? There's something to be said for that. But the utter lack of any semblance of toughness that you've seen from that defense, the utter lack of missing tackles. I don't care what age you are, how much experience you have. I mean, it used to be the staple of a Greg Schiano coach team that what Rutgers didn't have in talent, they would make up for in effort. What Rutgers didn't have in raw skill and star power, they made up for by focusing and chopping the moment. And what the program didn't have in terms of being a blue blood in history, the coaching staff would make up for with innovative things like kick blocks and other exotic things that they could pull out to be the equalizer. And I just don't see any of that anywhere on the field this season. I see a staff that started off that way that first year and that has gradually kind of descended into playing this afraid to lose rather than trying to win, analytic-based numbers game that is boring to watch, boring to root for, uninspiring to pull for, and that the fans are just sick and tired of dealing with. I see nothing that leads me to believe that this program is on the right track. Now, yeah, you have some recruits coming in. Can you hold the class together? I hope you do. I think there's a lot of good kids in the program now, especially the ones in this class. I feel bad for some of the seniors. Are the guys going to come back that are hurt? That remains to be seen. But when you look at a team like Indiana who comes in, who Rutgers has beaten so many times, beat last year, has beaten almost every time, except when Penix was over there. I mean, since we've gotten into the Big Ten, they don't have some vast talent advantage over Rutgers. They don't have some huge tradition that Rutgers can't compete with. But yet, look what they're doing to Nebraska. Look at their season so far. Kurt Cignetti, 1 year in. Now, I'm not jumping off a bridge or jumping the shark here, but what is it? Why are we 5 years deep? I understand there's injuries, but Schiano said it himself. You can't just blame injuries. What's going on? And all these players getting injured in practice all the time? Second string guys who are somewhat highly touted, Jabome, Walker, not ready to make impacts enough to the point that the defense literally can't stop anything. UCLA won one game before today. One game. So you're not going up against world beaters. UCLA is a formidable team. They're a formidable opponent. They're a Big Ten team. But at what point? Where is the light at the end of the tunnel with this program? Where is the light at the end of the tunnel? Because I'm seeing a whole lot of despair and a general sense of disorganization, a general sense of just being lost out at sea without a paddle. Whether it's the offense, whether it's the defense, I just don't see the passion. I don't see the execution. I don't see a team, offense, defense, special teams, coaching staff. I don't see a team that's on the same page. And let's be frank. It was great that we beat Washington. And we made plays at certain times we needed to make, and that's great. It was fun to beat Virginia Tech on the road. And we made plays at certain times, certain players. It was great. But I haven't really seen this entire season, and that begins with the Howard game, a team that was completely on the same page and knew what it was doing. Now, I understand you got to take time to get cohesive, take time to get the season rolling downhill. I understand that. But we're halfway through now. And it's gotten, if anything, worse. But it's not like I saw some team that was tough on the same page, marching to the beat of the same drum, that all of a sudden started to regress as the season went on. I saw a team at the beginning of the season that was already kind of floating out there. And that's got to be on the coaches. There is so much emphasis on the culture, so much emphasis on finding guys who buy into our system, finding guys who love the game of football, finding guys who fit our vision, who we can develop. If that philosophy is true and that philosophy works, then why is it that you can't find guys on the 2 deep or even on the first team to make an impact in some of these games when it counts? I see very few guys getting up doing the chop sign. Very few guys playing with that passion you saw last year and the last couple of years with Greg. I don't know what it is. I don't know if losing that many captains in and out of the games has hurt. I don't know if some of the coaching decisions have shook the team's faith that the team's on the right track. I don't know if just bad breaks have gotten to them, but something's wrong. Something's amiss. Something's off. And I'm here talking to you because this is what I do. I love you guys and Night Watch. And by the way, if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button. Do me a favor. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. We have nothing better to do. I'll wait. Click the subscribe button. If you love Rutgers, even if you're as depressed as me, click subscribe. It's right here. I appreciate it. Even if you're a UCLA fan, click that subscribe button. And hats off to UCLA. Berger got a touchdown in his homecoming. It was homecoming day, and Berger got a touchdown. Good for him. Good for UCLA. I mean, the fans were having fun, and they have struggled this year, and they get a big win on the road. Garber's 32 of 38, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. You know, we could say all day, oh, you know, our defense made them look great. Our defense did. We had put no pressure on them, and our secondary was terrible. And the run, the yards after the catch were an absolute joke. And Giano even highlighted and talked about that. Yards after the catch, they dominated us in. But give them props, you know. Berger only had, I thought Berger had a touchdown. I'm not seeing it on the box score. I don't know why. I could have sworn it was a receiving touchdown. Yeah, it was a receiving touchdown. That's why. But, you know, good for them. Good for them. UCLA earns their first win, and you know what? They got, unlike us, and Chiano even said it, they got out Rutgers today, so he thinks. UCLA gets on the plane all the way from California, has a 12 noon kickoff after traveling all over the country early in this season, did not get breaks with the schedule, playing tough teams, unlike Rutgers, had a tougher schedule travel-wise, tougher schedule in terms of strength of schedule, and they line up and they play their hearts out and they beat us, and they have a really nice, crisp-looking game doing it, especially on offense. So props to UCLA. Props to the Bruins. Props to the Bruins, and welcome to the conference. I mean, I got no hate for them. Give them credit, too. But there's a lot wrong with Rutgers. Something's broken, and I don't know how to fix it. You got a bye week to try to get it right, and you hope you get it right. But I'm kind of at a loss beyond that. And I know I've been babbling this whole podcast. I apologize. Usually I'm a little more eloquent. Usually I have a little bit more of a theme to approach this analysis with. But right now I'm kind of just babbling because I'm feeling like a ship lost at sea without a paddle right now. Without a sail, without anything. Or if I have a sail, the wind's blowing the wrong way. I don't know. But I'm just not feeling great about the direction of things right now. Injuries suck, it happens. But there are a lot more problems than just that. From top to bottom on this team. And you make it competitive at the end against UCLA, but because of questionable decisions earlier and because of just completely take away the touchdown before the half. I mean, there's a minute left. Take away the quarterback running 40 yards on a missed tackle. Come on, what are we doing? And the game might be different, might be won. But at this point, I think it would be foolish for Rutgers fans to think any higher of their team than being one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Purdue might be worse, maybe. Rutgers is bad. They're not a good team. You beat Washington because you made some plays. I'm not going to take it away from you. You made plays when you had to, but Washington also shot themselves in the foot repeatedly. Repeatedly. And other than that, you haven't beat anybody in the conference. You barely escaped Virginia Tech. And, Howard and Akron put up big plays on you, too, on defense. Before everybody was hurt. Mo, imagine, those are the old days, huh? Mo Toure was out, but other than that, you had guys. Powell, you didn't have. But you lost those games. And a guy like Moses Walker, who's highly touted, Jabome, highly touted, some of the starters highly touted. These are guys that we were told were not only on paper promising, but that the staff loved them. They had a vision for them. They knew how to develop them. We were a developmental program, and yet there's no answers when guys go down. So I could babble on forever, but I don't think it's going to make any difference. I think the rest is still unwritten. You have half the season left. What are they going to do with their opportunities? They have games they can win in November, but are they going to? I don't know. It doesn't look, they haven't done it. They haven't done it so far. Except against Washington, they really haven't. And VTech, but fine. They really haven't done it in the Big Ten this year. So it's going to be a battle just to get to a bowl game. And I'm rooting for them to get to a bowl game. But I don't know what's got to change. I don't know if you've just got to sit guys who are dinged up. Shiano talked about that a little bit. I don't know if you just got to play the hungriest guys on your team that have an emotional, spark, that believe in chop the moment, that believe in what you're preaching. I don't know if you've got to open things up and stop telling the players, you can't even field punts and you can't return kickoffs and, let's try to run it up the gut and just, I don't know if you just got to get crazy on defense, sending all kinds of exotic pressures. I don't know what you got to do. But you got to do something because whatever you're doing right now is not working at all. Not in the least. It's just not working at all. And it's been an absolute mess. And as a fan, not only is this season disappointing, but with the coaching decisions and with the guys in the pipeline that don't seem to be ready, with the guys at the top of the pipeline who struggle with basic things. This team really doesn't do anything well. Not fundamentals, not complementary football, not anything. I'm glad the offense had a good game today. And I hats off to Ethan Kaliakmanis. He was running and getting first downs. He was running and getting yards. He was hitting really nice throws. Props to the wide receivers. Props to Kyle Monunga and props to the O-line. The offense had a respectable game, a pretty good game today. But you can't sit here and pretend that the offense wasn't completely terrible the last 2 weeks. Because they were completely terrible the last 2 weeks when the defense gave them a chance, especially against Nebraska, and gave them a chance for a good portion of the game against Wisconsin before the thing got out of hand. The offense was terrible. So I'm not going to sit here now, props for today, just like I gave the defense props for 2 weeks ago, but something's wrong with this team. And it's not good enough. The fact that most of the stadium knew the game was probably lost towards the end of the third quarter is a problem. And I know they made it interesting at the end, but they still wound up losing. And the fact that you could kind of tell that, even if you're not a pessimist, and it's hard not to be a pessimist if you're a Rutgers fan, let's just keep it 100. That's not good enough in a season like this where the pipeline was supposed to be more full, where everybody had a little more pep in their step, where it looked like we were taking the next step. I don't know if you've got to clean out a bunch when the offseason comes just to re-establish that culture. If guys are getting over it, if it's not resonating anymore, you need new blood in there to buy into it, to start that spark again. I don't know if you got to shake up the staff. I don't know what you got to do. Transfers, recruiting, I don't know what. But if your philosophy is we're going to be developmental, we're going to spend our NIL with retaining the players we already have, we're going to primarily recruit high school, we're only going to augment the roster with transfers here and there. If that's your philosophy, then the next man up from the high school ranks that you developed better be ready to play. And if he's not, then you need to change your philosophy and go into the transfer portal much more and have a different philosophy as far as development and recruiting. That's just the nature of the game. The schedule only gets harder from here. This league is never going to get easier, and if Rutgers wants to stop being the stepchild, relegated to third tier all the time, the laughing stock who can never get over the hump, then we're going to need to do something. Something. Guys, I know that was a babbling, agonizing podcast, but this game and the last 3 weeks have been agonizing. I will discuss USC this week, but I am not confident. And I am completely, I talk a lot, and I've spent a half hour talking, but I don't know if I've said anything because I'm at a loss for words with respect to this program right now. And I think everybody is. So that's what I got for you guys. Thank you so much, though, for listening to me. Thank you if you came out to the game. By the way, crowd was awesome. It's a shame that we had that kind of showing because I haven't seen a noon crowd like that in a long time. Students showed up. Both tiers of the stadium were filled. The far corner was mostly filled. The crowd was loud. The crowd was into it. The crowd showed up for a game, and we were just let down on the field once again. But props to everybody out there who's a Rutgers fan, who came to the game, who's cheered the team on, wherever you are. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being a loyal Night Watch viewer or listener. Remember, we're on every major podcast platform. Just search Night Watch Larry K, and you can listen on your way to work any other time. If you're listening on the podcast, go over to YouTube, type in Night Watch Larry K, and you will see the videos, and you'll be able to visually see me do these rants. And if you're on YouTube, or even if you find the time, please click that subscribe button. Let's get up to 1,000 subscribers. We got to get ready for basketball season, and we still got half this season to go. I will talk to you guys very soon. Try to forget about it. Go watch some other games, or just forget about football for a while. Go hang with the family. Go watch a movie. Go cook dinner. That's what I'm about to do. And I'll talk to all you guys later. Larry K. out.